Namaskar and welcome to Daily Global Insights, episode 264. A shout out to our viewers to like this program so it can reach its maximum potential. Today is Sunday, the 24th of October, and here are the main points. In India news, Jammu Kashmir administration to deploy drones to monitor community areas in the valley. And let's welcome our co-host, Sridhar Chityalaji. Sridharji, namaskar and welcome to PGurus channel, sir.
Namaskar, good morning to everybody, or good evening to everybody, depending on whichever part of the world you are. And welcome. We look forward to your continued support as we get into another day, another session, and always some exciting things to talk about.
Yes, indeed, sir. And your take on what is happening in Jammu and Kashmir. Recently, we noticed that Pakistan feels like they have suddenly, become macho and discovered their mojo, having, occupied Afghanistan, and suddenly now they are beginning to flex their muscles across the Kashmir Valley. They've been targeting minorities, which is a very regrettable thing. And on top of that, we're going to talk about this in the US news section about Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. But anyway, let's take a look at this. Your take on what is happening, sir. Clearly, the administration is reacting to what has been happening there. Do you think deploying drones is going to curb this violence? Because it is very, very targeted, and that's concerning.
Well, I think first and foremost, as you said the context quite correctly, there is a change in geopolitics. There's a leadership change in the United States, and I think there's been a cascading effect as a result of that, which is transitioning from Trump to Biden. There's always lull and quiet, and people just seem to have hibernated and waited for the time, and things have begun to unfold. So you find that there is silence from United States to start with. Second, you found the Taliban taking charge of the Afghanistan, and it's very well known that now Pakistan played a significant role in making those things happen. So with a very willing set of players in Afghanistan and a set of partners who have worked with Pakistan, you find that there's a resurgence. Then to compound this further, you have the Chinese footprint, who are again allies, and they will use every tool that's available to inconvenience India. And suddenly you find even the Russians being quite silent on these activities. So what you find now is the proxy war has commenced, and you have this random incidents, but selected, targeted, and surgical. We saw that in Kashmir, and we saw that extend into Bangladesh. I mean, even the Bangladesh violence, I'm told by people, by experts, that it's probably as a result of the same proxy war. And you're also beginning to see some aspects of this within India, as well as other main parts of India, as well as in the Nepalese India-Nepal border. Now, to answer your question, whether drone surveillance is going to be effective, look, if there's going to be a lone wolf, it's very hard to contain. But at least the drones and other tools that's available at disposal of the country is more a surveillance, as it correctly said, to see in the event. If you can detect, you prevent, but you cannot stop what you cannot see. So that remains, but that does not mean that Indian government or the Kashmiri local administration have to keep quiet. They have to use every available tool at their disposal. And the last thing that to conclude this point is that continuing to engage Pakistan and not exerting diplomatic pressure or military pressure while this proxy war continues is only going to be counterproductive to whatever India wants to accomplish.
And India signs a pact with the United States to procure Mk-54 torpedo expendables worth around 400 crores. The arrival of British aircraft carrier-led strike group in Mumbai represents British Indo-Pacific tilt, says Foreign Secretary. All good, because India is now looking beyond United States for helping it counter the naval might of China, which is supposedly quite big. Sridharji, this new development should augur well, because it also tells US that while we continue to engage with you, India is also saying that we will get help from our other friends, such as the Brits and the French.
Yes, if I have to requote Mr. Biden, while the strategic ambiguity can prevail, as this was told by Mr. Nicholas Burns, the Chinese ambassador, the US ambassador to China, I think India is demonstrating strategic clarity, which is to say, look, we bought 11 P-81 anti-submarine aircraft, and so now we are tooling it with the appropriate equipment, both for surface as well as the submarine anti-submarine warfare. So we have now acquired these torpedoes. So therefore, we are doing that. While we do that, Britain wants to reach out, just as France wants to reach out, and so we are accommodating the British in a strategic partnership. So the aircraft carrier is here. So our objective is to see that there is a unified front, which helps to put China on a deterrence path. So I think, as you rightly said, I think we discussed this yesterday. There are two areas of cooperation you're going to see between India and various countries. One is defense, second is economic. I think the world is also moving away from China and moving away from United States in terms of its over dependence and trying to expand markets. And one of the best markets to expand is India, because as it tries to accelerate towards its $5 trillion economy.
India is not happy with the statement coming after Russia's summit, suggesting that India must accept the reality of Afghanistan being run by a Pakistan-backed Taliban. Indian External Minister and UK Foreign Secretary issued a joint press statement that the Afghan soil cannot be used for launching anti-terror activities. Sridharji, everybody keeps saying this, but nothing has stopped them from doing what they're doing, sir.
Why? Look, I think Taliban has been extremely careful not to use its territory as a launch pad. So Taliban has restrained. If there is an activity, you may have seen it from Al Qaeda, or you may have seen it from ISIS-K, or you may have seen from renegade groups of Pakistan, but they have not launched it from Afghanistan. So therefore, I think that the point that Taliban has as thus far has restrained is a good outcome. Now, the question is whether that is going to be the case on a continuum remains to be seen. So this is where Britain was the first country which said it will not recognize Taliban, while the other countries, tried to take a neutral position, including India. So it's good to see the statement coming out. I think the Russian ministry making a statement, India must get used to Pakistan, with the Taliban, which is a Pakistan-supported organization ruling Afghanistan, is purely a political punting that Russia is doing, and it's not certainly helping India's cause. Clearly, Russia and China have aligned themselves to take on United States, which has not traditionally happened before.
Many analysts believe that the long overdue visit by Amit Shah to Kashmir cannot mask the absence of a strategy to end proxy war being launched by Pakistan on India. Engaging them in international forums and easing military and diplomatic measures have only boldened Pakistan. I think you touched upon this, sir, so we'll move on to the next topic. Global oil major Exxon in talks to buy stake in ONGC's deep sea fields in India. This is also a good move, in my opinion, sir, because that would lead to disinvestment of the government in ONGC. Your thoughts, Sridharji?
I think that there is always a net loss and a net gain. As United States shuts off its oil fields and leasing capabilities and further exploration, the businesses have to shift their priorities. So they have shifted to India, which augurs very well for India, but not very good for United States. So here, they're taking a stake in ONGC. So they bring three things. They bring the know-how, they bring the capital, plus their ability to, increase the capacity. I think that there is a concerted move by 2040 for India to be self-reliant on its energy needs, because it is one of the biggest line items of expenses in the balance sheet or the budget of India. So this augurs, as you rightly said, very well for India.
The labor participation rate increases to 41%, highest in 12 months on the back of targeted PLI schemes and other programs, says Piyush Goyal, the Minister of Commerce and Industry. Sir, put this in a little bit of a perspective. 41% is it among the highest numbers, or is this something that used to be some other number before? Because I would like to see if there is any correlation that we can establish on a post-pandemic recovery mode.
I think in September last year, I am told that the number touched around 12% or 14%, the participation rate. So this is a reflection that India is getting back on its feet. The industry is reopening. The PLI programs having an impact in terms of capital infusion and augmented support, very similar to what we had in United States, if you recall the PPP programs, which has now become part of the norm, especially around the SME, but this is around the broad cross-section of the industry. So the participation rate by standalone by 41% in its own right is not great, but when you look at the post-pandemic scenario, it shows that there is a V-curve effect on the labor market. I think that's the way you need to kind of look at it.
And let's take a quick look at global news. Israel and 7 nations, Germany, Italy, Britain, France, India, Greece, and the United States, are participating in Blue Flag 2021, the largest and most advanced aerial exercise ever held in the Jewish state. Drone attack targeting US forces reported in Syria as US Army kills an Al-Qaeda leader. Which leader did the US forces kill, Sridharji? And Blue Flag 2021 is a very interesting concept because I think it takes a lot more complex operations and maneuvering to get so many countries to participate.
Well, first and foremost, I think that the Blue Flag effort is very complex maneuver, and most sophisticated equipment are likely to be involved in this exercise. But most important thing here is when you look at the list of nations that's participating, you will notice that there is Greece, there is India, there is France, there's UK, there's Germany. It's almost like, the World War coalition, which is recognizing should there be a flare-up in the Middle East with Israel as the point of target, that there is a unified alliance which is ready to deter any such action. So this augurs very well for not only for those countries which are participating, but also for India, if we are an Indian viewer, because India is now very much part of that ecosystem of the global partnerships and global alliances in any kind of strategic play. So I think that's the first thing. As far as this, the trouble in these drone attacks, which we have talked about, they seem to have taken out an Al-Qaeda leader. I don't have the details of the specific name. I am sure given the past mistakes, they'll wait till such time everything is clear before we get the name out. But it looks like they have taken out somebody because from there has been consistent drone attacks. If it's not Al-Qaeda, it's ISIS-K, but Al-Qaeda is fairly functional in this area of Syria.
Israel designates 6 Palestinian organizations as terrorists. Sridharji, Israel is also now beginning to get very, very serious. There were some doubts expressed because of the fact that this coalition was tenuous, but looks like Bennett is asserting himself. That is how I see it, sir. I don't know how you are looking at the developments in Israel.
I had concerns whether he would exert his authority, but he has proved me wrong. And he has proved to himself he is very much what he was or what he is, which is the security and sovereignty of the state of Israel is unquestionable as far as in the mind of Mr. Bennett, Naftali Bennett is concerned. So I think he's, as you rightly point out, he's slowly asserting his right and making sure that those bad guys get punished. And, if you're a good guy, you're willing to shake hands and work, move forward, as has been done with the UAE and with Oman, which is to say, we are good boys, we're here and we work together and move things forward. So I think that's what Palestine should have done and, integrated themselves quite well. But then, of course, this is geopolitics.
Bennett and Putin discuss Iran and airstrikes in Syria in a 5-hour meeting. Wow, 5 hours. That's a long time, sir.
It is. I think Vladimir and Naftali again are probably meeting for the first time. In a capacity of a prime minister and president as their respective countries' leaders. Syria is close to the heart of Vladimir because he's supporting the Bashar al-Assad regime, and he has supported them right throughout. He has, had a footprint to deter the al-Nusrat, which is the Al-Qaeda version in the Syria. And he's also, skirted away the Turks from, doing any entertaining ambitions in Syria. So it's natural that there's a lot of Israeli activity going on in Syria. He may be saying, hey, if you are going after this, then, maybe I'll also cooperate with you. And as long as, his boy is left untouched and his boy is making sure that he's not creating trouble for the Israel. I think that seems to have been the long discussion. You see, right now, Israel has on one side and the other side, it's got two major problems. One is an unstable Lebanon, which is created by the renegades from Iran. And then, of course, the renegades in Syria, which is again, the offshoots of the Hezbollah and Iran. So therefore, they have to deal with these two issues. But then you also have the Russian footprint. So I think most of the discussions seem to have been around that aspect, and also the blue flag, which doesn't include Russia.
China law tightens land borders amid rising tensions with India and possible Islamic militants' infiltration from Afghanistan. Sridharji, this was something that was expected because in Taliban, there are some Uyghur Muslims also who are part of it. And so this is, again, no surprise. So is China now beginning to taste the fruits of its labor?
Well, first and foremost, which they have tightened their land reform regulation, simply implies that they just, if you recall, it empowered its Coast Guard to fire. So it converted its Coast Guard into an effective Navy. We covered this in DGI. In this instance, it is going to make its police and patrol forces into like a full-fledged PLA, which means they can be both deterrence as well as offensive. That is the change in status around the LAC that they're bringing about. One, to deter India, and I think the second is, as you rightly pointed out, the refugee or the terrorist infiltration that is happening from Afghanistan into Uyghur province, which is going to create a problem. To me, this is where the Achilles heel of China is going to begin, both first within Afghanistan as well as in Uyghur province. They're also going to see these problems emanate and emerge, emboldened by the same terrorists in mainland Pakistan, where the BRI, Belt and Road Initiative, is going. So therefore, I think that this is just the beginning of the journey, and we're going to hear more about this in the days to come.
And Japan foreign minister invites the United States to join CPTPP. Wasn't US a founding member of TPP, Sridharji?
US was a founding member. It quit under President Trump.
Oh, under Trump. That's right. Now I remember. Correct.
Under President Trump, they quit because they said, look, I prefer bilateral. I don't prefer this multilateral. Trump very much reflected the Indian sentiments, and same with Japan. Japan, though, is part of it. It doesn't have bilateral treaty with China, which is the reason why China wants to enter and become a force to reckon with in the CPTPP. Remember, CPTPP extends into Mexico, Canada, and upward Pacific Islands. So therefore, it is a strategic alliance. So Japan is saying, China, US, come back because you will be a key ally here.
You know, when you have so many alliances, one would tear one's hair in frustration because doing one could perhaps contravene something else. I don't know how they are going to pick through all this. Anyway, it just seems to be on paper, but what do I know? U.S. Defense Secretary reinforces U.S. commitment to defend Taiwan. North Korea tells U.S. to stop supporting Taiwan. Looks like North Korea, which is the, what I call subsidiary of China, is beginning to make some noises for its master.
You can see that there are two independent but isolated but integrated incidents. China's other surrogate is Pakistan, flexing
Right.
its muscles in the Indian subcontinent. Then you have the Chinese other surrogate, which is North Korea, flexing its muscles, in Pacific, Korean Peninsula, South China Sea, and Indo-Pacific. So it's amazing as to how these renegade actors are being used by China as tools in its pursuit of, what you call, bleed and lead. So therefore, they're trying to bleed as well as get these guys to lead these efforts. It's frustrating, but that's the way it is here. When you don't have a global deterrence, having ships circulating and navigating doesn't stop these guys unless there is some kind of a decisive deterrence action.
And NATO will concentrate on countering the Chinese threat for the next decade, says Stoltenberg. Stoltenberg sounds German. Sridharji, a little bit more perspective. Is he the next premier or chancellor of Germany?
No. NATO general. So I think
NATO general.
NATO general. So I think that what NATO is saying, so everybody, NATO, EU, Britain, France, Germany, everybody is in the Indo-Pacific, South China Sea waters, because as the economy tilts from the traditional North Atlantic as well as United States, North Atlantic, which includes United States and Western Europe, towards the Asian Peninsula, you will find that more and more of these nations are going to take an active position because global resources and global trade flows through, and the biggest impediment is China.
As Delta mutant cases rise, UK and Austria may impose stringent controls on the unvaccinated. Death toll continues to rise in Russia. Sridharji, this is a little bit of a concern. You had the Delta rear its ugly head. I thought it was under control, but it seems to still come up in various new, unexpected places.
It's a Delta plus, they say. It's another new variant. United States is keeping a close eye because the corridor of US-UK is also being opened. They've seen these cases rise sporadically, UK, and then, of course, Austria has seen the cases. As far as Russia is concerned, the alarming rate of deaths that is increasing. I'm quoting you of the data that I have seen. We have not presenting the data here, but we'll probably share it in the next day or two. But the number of cases, active cases, has risen by about 200 to 300,000 in the last week or so in Britain. It had just come close to about 1 million active cases. It's now jumped back to about 1.3 million active cases. By a long stretch, United States is around 9.6 million or close to 10 million active cases. So UK is hanging around there. And if you recall, UK, Italy were considered one of the corridors from where some of these cases emerged into United States and COVID began to propagate. So hence is taking an interest. Now, with regard to your point, UK is again a confluence of several nations. People travel and, come into UK. So you can be reasonably certain that somewhere from some place, a new variant has emerged. They're still studying. We don't have the details, but it seems to be, again, spreading fast.
And now let's take a look at the United States news. The US federal budget deficit hits 2.8 trillion during fiscal year 2021, the second largest ever in US history. So where do the talks stand, Sridharji, now?
The talks are that they seem to have resolved or coming to a conclusion, according to Vice President, according to Nancy Pelosi, according to Biden. They all seem to have had a virtual meet over the weekend, and this $2.8 trillion, $2 trillion is the number that, we talked about this, not 3.5 trillion, but somewhere between 1.9 to $2 trillion is the number that they're coming to, comprising of three elements. One, child care expansion or child credits, or the general expansion of the benefits to the underprivileged. The second is the expansion around the Medicare, and the third is around the climate accord. So I think the sticking point still is around the climate accord. But I believe they will get past the climate accord because, again, remember, Manchin was not supportive of the climate accord as part of this bill. So I think that issue is being resolved. So I think we're getting close to 2 trillion. But already, the fiscal year is September 30th. As far as United States is concerned, it doesn't go by the calendar year. So you find that we have $6.2 trillion was the last year because of 3 major stimulus programs in FY20. But they've used that as a norm to increase it to 6.8 trillion. We can share the numbers, but the story is, but it's all possible because of the cost of funding. The cost of funding is less than 2% of the total debt. They can afford it. When it grows past that to about 3% or 3.5%, which typically is the case, then you're going to see these numbers bulge out. And this is going to become a permanent feature. Another important factor on this deficit is it assumes that the revenue from the taxes is going to go from 3.4 trillion in FY20 to about 4 trillion in 2021, FY21. And that's purely based on increase in personal taxes and increase in corporate taxes. Let's hope that these guys get their numbers right. If not, it's going to further blow out.
Where are the workers? Cutoff of jobless aid spurs no influx. Sridharji, I think we've been talking about this. There has been a fundamental change in the way things work these days because of a pandemic. Many people started working from online, from home. Do you think that could also have some effect in here?
Well, I think certainly the issue is is around the vaccine mandates and the mask mandates. Many people are saying, okay, if I remain unemployed until such period of time, I get it, and then I keep the money and I tighten my belt and I run the savings out. And we have already given the savings numbers, which is at one of the highest rates. And all the supplementary benefits is also being extended, if not direct unemployment insurance. So the mandates have become a problem for people to get back into work. They're saying, why am I going to go through all these difficulties? So this concept of pro-choice versus mandated seems to apply for certain categories, doesn't seem to apply here. So this is one of the biggest hurdles that you are seeing in terms of the employment not picking up. Also, we have seen migration of people because of crime and other factors. It's possible that some of them are relocated or relocating, and the lag effect of this could be seen sometime in the near future rather than immediate.
And we are seeing many company employees protest the vaccine mandate. American Airlines, General Electric, and even some cargo companies warn that vaccine mandate may worsen supply chain disruptions. Sridharji, so America seems to somehow still think that vaccines are not needed. There's a mindset block or a mind block. How do you think this happened? And when do you think people are going to say that a vaccinated human being is better than an unvaccinated human being?
When the media stops rhetoric, I think you will find that people beginning to make a positive move. In 2020, as the vaccines came in, there was a lot of positive energy in late 2020 and then the first quarter 2021. Then it began to slide backwards. Why did it begin to slide backwards? It began to slide. People said there's collaterals, there's side effects, there's issues, whether there was, genuineness in terms of the launch and announcement of these vaccines, what kind of molecular structure that made up the compound of the specific vaccine. All this became a deterrence factor, notwithstanding the fact United States had an excellent distribution system in terms of vaccinating people. Excellent distribution system. I'm vaccinated twice and also boosters. So therefore, I can say, hey, I'm fine. And so therefore, but education is education and awareness is awareness. I think we again touched on Daily Global Insights that we did not, going back in time, almost 6-9 months, that one of the big things that United States has failed is communication and engagement. All you need to do is look opposite in India, which has got 4 times the population of United States and 3 times the vaccine doses that's been given to one, a single dose, aren't almost equal to the population of United States. Those who are fully vaccinated, pretty close to about 210 million people. I think the eligible population in the United States is about 233 million. So you find that that is what has played a big part in terms of confidence, communication, engagement. I think India seems to have done a better job, and the United States seems to have very badly faltered. And also the political side, because the rhetoric between the two sides is so diametrically
partisan.
Partisan. It doesn't help the case. I think that would be my answer.
And gas prices continue to rise as the unleaded hits $7.59 in one California town. Alaska senator warns Biden's energy policies are empowering adversaries. Isn't the Alaska senator a Democrat, Sridharji?
He's a Democrat. That is why, because it constitutes an employment. So therefore, when the employment is affected, Alaska is reliant on energy. That what funds that specific, little state. So you're going to cut off, then, what's the revenue source? I mean, fisheries is not going to generate, or tourism is not going to generate and offset the revenue. So the person is saying it's going to be adversarial. Why it is going to be adversarial? Because, other nations are going to pick up the pie, and you need to import and, create a problem. You can't transition all of this, various industrial complexes into electronic overnight. It's going to take time, and rather than abrupt end. So naturally, this Alaskan region is very badly impacted as a result of this energy policy.
And Tony Podesta was paid $500,000 by Huawei to lobby White House disclosure shows. Sridharji, refresh my memory again. Podesta was in the Trump administration, or
Podesta was in the Democratic Obama administration. He was, chief of staff, and then he was, part of the White House, he's making, and I think he was also in the Clinton administration, if my memory serves me right. And the fact that these active lobbyists are working in favor of some of these companies is a reflection of Mike Pompeo's statement, which is namely, you are, using our internal resources to work against the interests of United States. I think so. This is an important statement given, the difficulties that United States has had with Huawei.
Yes, indeed. And National Association for School Board Regents regrets DOJ Garland remarks as domestic terrorists opposing critical race theory. So this is the school boards of the Association for the School Boards. There is still, this is again divided down partisan lines, whether to teach CRT or not, critical race theory or not. But what is it that the Department of Justice Chief or Secretary Garland say that, made them feel like they were being characterized as domestic terrorists?
Well, the verbiage that is coming out from the Democrats and the verbiage that is coming out from the various CRT-supported parent groups is, please treat these people as domestic terrorists. They are coming in, raising voices, they are supporting, they are dissenting. Now, where does the domestic terrorists come in? Because DOJ is asking FBI to conduct surveillance programs and track and monitor these people, in other words, the parents. So whenever you have an FBI surveillance program, what's the next step? What are you going to do with that information? Are you going to execute? Are you going to enforce? And if DOJ is saying, Derek Garland is saying, hey, we're going to enforce using the FBI surveillance because you are becoming an impediment to imposing this CRT theory into the schools, this is part of the policy, then the people are saying, why are you treating us like domestic terrorists if we don't support? because we don't believe in this. So I think there seems to have been an internal email leak, which at least a couple of members, without informing the National Association for School Boards, seem to have shared it with White House, and White House seems to have been either in support or did not dissent on that email that has come from two of the board members. So this is the context and background behind this specific issue.
And in market news, Powell says inflation risks are rising and that Fed can be patient. I read that as the interest rates are going to stay low for a longer time. Dow closes at a record and posts a third straight positive week. Sridharji, how do you see the markets for the next week? October typically is a down month. Do you think this could, buck the trend?
Well, next week is going to be a very interesting week. All the major tech companies, which are in the 1.5 to 2 trillion plus market cap, are going to be announcing their earnings. Apple, Microsoft, Google, etc. So therefore, you can expect a little bit of a bump in the markets as these earnings come out next week. But two major headwinds. Right now, the interest rate futures is pointing to 1.7%. It's around 1.64. It's around 1.7%. The energy, oil, crude, and Brent is toggling between $83 to $86 between the two of them. So these are the two big headwinds. Notwithstanding the fact Fed's Dr. Powell may not be raising the interest rates, but clearly the market rates, the 10-year T price on the 10-year Treasury bonds is increasing, fearing inflation.
And with that, we conclude our DGI episode for today. Do subscribe, do click on the bell button so that you will get notified. And we do love for you to click on the like button as soon as this Hangout or the website or webinar starts. This helps us drive more traffic to the site. Once again, thanks for all your support. And the Monday edition will be again at 5:30 p.m. IST as always. Namaskar, Sridharji, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Namaskar. Thank you so much. Thanks for your continued support. And, we are going to be back on track Monday and, with next set of news